was 72 years old, a second-generation mechanic who had operated his garage for 43 years. His small corner shop, with its rusted tin roof, wasn't much to see, but it had long been the place where the entire town trusted their vehicles. The walls were lined with photographs faded by time, customers posing proudly next to freshly repaired cars, handwritten notes of thanks, and the original tools his father had used when he opened the shop in 1963. The concrete floor was darkened by years of oil stains, each mark telling the tale of a different fix, a different family, helped back on the road. One Tuesday morning, Frank received an official letter while swapping spark plugs on Mrs. Wilson's 1989 Buick, a car he'd serviced since it rolled off the lot. The city council had approved a rezoning project. His block would soon become a commercial plaza filled with boutique stores and trendy restaurants. The notice gave him 7 days to vacate. There would be no relocation help, since the document stated his building didn't meet modern structural regulations. After nearly 50 years, he was being dismissed with a single sheet of paper. The next day, a young representative in a press suit arrived at his door. He couldn't have been older than 30, clutching a tablet and tapping impatiently as Frank slowly finished tightening a bolt. "Mr. Donovan, I need your signature to confirm you've received the notice," the man said, skipping introductions. Frank wiped his hands on a rag. "I'd like to speak to someone about an extension. Some of these parts take weeks to come in." "This place is done," the official cut in, looking around with clear disdain. "How much longer do you really think you can keep up? Modern cars run on software, not whatever this is," he added, waving vaguely at Frank's neatly arranged workbench. When Frank didn't sign right away, the official slammed his palm on the counter, knocking over a tray of carefully organized tools, wrenches, sockets, and screwdrivers, some passed down from Frank's father, sending them clattering across the floor. Frank slowly knelt down, his aching knees protesting, and began gathering each tool. His weathered hands shook slightly as he picked up a socket wrench his father had given him on his 16th birthday. Outside, pedestrians peeked in, then quickly turned away and walked on. That evening, after everyone had left, Frank sat alone on a wooden stool, his hand resting on the toolbox his father had once given him. His eyes stared blankly at the now empty space that had been the focus of his life's work, seeing not what was there, but the memories of countless cars that had passed through these doors and left running smoother than they arrived. By the following day, news had made its way around the small town of Millfield. Most folks just shrugged when they heard about the garage closing. "That's just the way things go," they said. Over at the cafe across the street, talk buzzed about the new construction. "It'll raise property values," one enthusiastic real estate agent explained. "That old shop was turning into a bit of an eyesore anyway." No one seemed to recall how Frank had kept working through the blizzard of '96, fixing tire chains and jump-starting dead batteries, or how he'd kept his rates unchanged for retired folks even when the cost of parts went up. James Parker, who had launched a modern auto service shop off the highway the year before, stopped by offering half-hearted sympathy. "It's all about digital diagnostics now, Frank," he said, leaning on the doorframe in his spotless work shirt. "You've been running on memories. Not many old models left to service anymore." Frank didn't respond. He simply continued slowly packing his tools, gently wrapping each item in cloth, boxing up filters and spare components, like he was sending old companions on a final voyage. Later that afternoon, an old friend and former teammate, Bill Henderson, dropped by. They'd played football together in high school 55 years earlier. "Was wondering if you'd be willing to sell me your sign," Bill said, a little unsure. "Thought I might hang it in the den. For the memories, you know?" Frank just gave a silent nod, unable to speak past the tightness in his throat. As the sun lowered, stretching long shadows across the concrete floor, Frank opened a drawer in his old desk. Inside were faded Polaroids of customers through the decades, kids who had grown up and brought their own children in for a first oil change, families whose vehicles he'd looked after through breakups, graduations, and funerals. He pulled out a notepad and wrote in his careful, slanted handwriting, "Thank you. I've lived my life with no regrets." He taped the note inside the window, a message only visible to someone truly paying attention. That night, in the modest apartment above the garage, The only place he'd called home since his wife passed, Frank turned in for the night. Frank sat on the edge of his bed, his fingers tracing the faded initials his father had etched into his old toolbox. "I just hope someone remembers these hands once helped them get back on the road," he whispered to the empty room. The only response was the faint hum of passing traffic and the occasional honk, people rushing home, giving no thought to the aging mechanic whose time seemed to have run out. "I'm sorry, but I can't stay silent anymore," he said. A skilled tradesman with over 4 decades of service to his community loses it all because of one piece of official paperwork? If you think this is incredibly unfair, please leave a comment. Respect. The next morning, Frank showed up early to finish clearing out his things. The rising sun painted the garage in a warm golden light, the same garage that had been his life's purpose. He was lifting the door for the last time when he heard it, the unmistakable growl of a V8 engine, then another, then more. He turned to witness something he could hardly believe. A 1967 Corvette Stingray rolled up, its cherry red paint gleaming in the morning rays. Right behind it, a deep blue Mustang GT. Then a Bentley Continental, a vintage Jaguar E-Type. One after another, luxurious and classic vehicles began lining the street, their engines idling in a perfect mechanical chorus. Stunned neighbors stepped outside, phones raised, filming the surreal sight. Traffic came to a halt as the procession grew, an unplanned car show unfolding out of thin air. The Corvette door swung open, and out stepped Tyler Johnson, now 42, the CEO of a Boston tech firm. Frank knew him instantly, the anxious teen who'd limped in years ago with a beat-up Honda on the morning of his first interview. Tyler walked up to Frank and did something unexpected. He got down on one knee, holding an old photo. It showed the two of them standing beside that same Honda, 24 years earlier. "If it weren't for you, Frank," he said, his voice clear across the silent street, "I wouldn't be here today. You wouldn't take a cent when my car died before my interview. You told me to pay you when I got my first check. That job changed everything for me." One by one, the drivers stepped forward, each carrying their own story. Sarah Chen, now a trauma surgeon, came with a framed certificate. "You fixed my flat for free the night before my med school entrance exam," she said. "I made it there on time because of you. I've saved lives since because you saved me that night." Marcus Williams, now a judge, stood proudly in his robe. "We're not here to talk about debts, Frank. We're here to defend the spirit of a neighborhood." The crowd grew. Locals gathered, some live streaming. Social media caught fire with the tag hash Frank's Garage trending citywide, then nationally. The young official who'd once knocked over Frank's tools showed up, clipboard in hand. He paused at the crowd's edge, stunned, unacknowledged. Finally, a silver-haired man in a flawless suit stepped out from a black Mercedes. Thomas Grant, now director of transportation, whom Frank had once taught how to change oil when he was just a broke student. "Frank Donovan," he said formally, "it is a great honor to present you with this certificate of appreciation for exceptional service." He handed Frank an official document embossed with the city's seal. "You are hereby named the guardian of craftsmen's values in this community." He leaned in and added quietly, "There's talk of a rezoning amendment at tomorrow's emergency council session." Cheers erupted from the crowd. Frank stood motionless, eyes glistening in the morning light, surrounded by polished chrome and loyal hearts. He didn't say much. He just sat on the garage steps, quietly polishing one last wrench with the same careful touch he'd given every tool. A small boy made his way through the onlookers, holding a broken toy car. "Can you fix this for me, sir?" he asked softly. Frank smiled and nodded. "If you believe I can, then I still can." In the weeks that followed, the community stood strong together. Though Frank's garage would eventually close on his own terms, not the city's, a bronze plaque was mounted on the corner. Frank's garage is no longer open, but never forgotten. The city council created an annual scholarship in Frank's honor for students entering vocational trades. Local schools started inviting skilled tradespeople to speak on the value of working with one's hands. And maybe most significantly, people began viewing the other small businesses in town, the bakery, the tailor, the cobbler, through new eyes, wondering what stories might be tucked behind those doors. Some folks don't need their efforts recognized. They just need to live by their values. They may lose their property, but they earn a lasting place in people's hearts. You might forget this story in a few days, but if no one shares it again, history will stay quiet forever. Subscribe to amazing stories where justice, compassion, and remembrance are preserved to the very end.